your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now!
And I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You know, we're here every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we go over crime-related movies with a couple retired law enforcement officers, and it's always a lot of fun. Now, today's movie that we're going to do is more of a political thriller than a crime thriller. We're going to do The Manchurian Candidate from 2024, so it's the remake. But yeah, and it just parallels with a lot of stuff that's going on in our campaign today. Obviously, we don't have brainwashing and that stuff going on, but you know, we do have corporate elites picking and choosing who the candidate's going to be on the Democratic side. And this is why I wanted to do this movie. It does have some crime in it. We got, killings and, murder and all that other stuff. So it still does have some crime in it. But, before I get into the movie, I want to encourage you guys to go to my other show, Briefing with the Chief, every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and kjradv.com. Tomorrow, I am going to interview a judge, a candidate for judge, and she has an expertise in elder abuse. She's a DA, and she's running for judge. I use those as an opportunity to introduce you to good judicial candidates. I do vet them before I bring them on my show, make sure they're at least moderate, and that they support the rights of victims and the rule of law. And I think elder abuse is an important issue that we're going to be dealing with over the next couple decades, because all the boomers are getting older. And I was just doing some research that 7 million people suffer some form of elder abuse right now every year, and it's increasing, and they believe that is dramatically underreported. So that should be a good show tomorrow. Additionally, I've been talking about Tim Walz. I talked about him last night. I got invited on a night court, a host out of Texas, a Spaces on Twitter, and we talked about Minneapolis, the fall of Minneapolis. Liz Collin was on there. Now I interviewed her on my show, Briefing with the Chief. But I got in a little bit of Tim Walz because I read his response to the riots. And let's just say his response was completely inadequate. In fact, it was incompetence is probably the word I could use for it. Having done those things, I can say firsthand, he completely failed in his responsibility as governor in Minnesota during the George Floyd's riot, and that cost people their businesses. It cost 3 people their lives, and he deserves that blame. But the mainstream media is not really covering that. So, I would encourage you, because I will talk about that stuff over the next couple of weeks. I think it's important for people to hear that as we steamroll towards November 5th, Election Day, and early voting starts dropping. Additionally, I just finished the book. Hillbilly Elegy. So I will do a show on J.D. Vance and what his life was all about, and weed through the misinformation that seems to be floating out there in mainstream media about J.D. Vance, and why somebody who grew up dirt poor in a household with addiction and abuse, and how he got out of it, and why he has the viewpoints that he has. I think it's really important, particularly for me, somebody who grew up in a Rust Belt state. He grew up in a Rust Belt state, and I left, he left. So there were some parallels I saw, because there was not a lot going on in those Rust Belt states when I graduated high school, and he experienced obviously much more difficult circumstances than me, but the lack of jobs was one of them, right? And he pulled himself out of it. And so I think I'm going to enjoy that show, just because you can see what's going on in his life, and it draws you can do the direct lines from how he lived his life to his political positions today. Now, before we get into our show, I got to do my plug. We got the gala and Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up for the Los Angeles Mission. The Los Angeles Mission services the men and women of Skid Row. They provide valuable services, cognitive behavioral therapy programs, basically services that are designed to work, not necessarily services like California has been spending money on for the last probably 10 years. And it was interesting. The governor came out and says, damn it, these counties, they need to do something about cleaning up these homeless encampments. Now that the Supreme Court says you can clean them up, he says either they do it or I won't give them any money. Well, I guess he learned that if you just throw money at the problem, it doesn't work. You actually have to set expectations. It only took him 6 years as governor, 8 years as mayor to figure it out. That actually you got to set expectations when you spend money. It just shows just how completely incompetent this guy. But I digress. Okay, so I go to losangelesmission.org and look at their website. You can look at they give out well over 1 million meals every year, and they provide basic services for people on Skid Row, but also they use those opportunities as outreach to bring people into longer treatment programs, 6 months, 12 months, and they reintegrate them back in society. They do have a faith-based element, so it limits how much money they can get from government. So they need your help. So pull up the losangelesmission.org, make a donation today. Any small amount can help. $25, $50 to $100. Anything can help, and do your good deed for today. So this movie, The Manchurian Candidate, was released in 2004, and it's a neo-noir psychological political thriller directed by Jonathan Demme, and it's based upon Richard Condon's book from 1959, and it's a remake. Now I remember watching the original movie in 1962. I liked it. It had Frank Sinatra in it, and but this one stars Denzel Washington, Liev Schreiber, are probably the two main characters. We've got Meryl Streep in it too. She plays kind of this incredibly controlling mom. So instead of commies in the original, it was commies. We got mommies that are brainwashing their son, and we got John Voight is in it. The great John Voight. He's one of the few conservative voices in Hollywood these days. And we got Jeffrey Wright is in this. Now, he was in a previous movie we just did. He was in, I forget the name of the movie now. We just did it. John Baylis will remember when I bring him on. But he's a great actor, a great black actor. He played in Boardwalk Empire, played the nemesis of Chalky White, and that guy, I think his name's John Williams. He recently died of an overdose due to fentanyl, another big problem we have going on today. But we had some cameos. We had Al Franken had a cameo, which is kind of interesting. So, and anyways, it's a good movie. I enjoyed the movie. But let's bring on our guest. We'll go in rank order. So we'll start out with retired Lieutenant John Baylis, a regular on the show, a California refugee, hiding out in places unknown. John, come on aboard here.
Morning.
Good morning.
Back. It's Ides of March that we did.
Oh, the Ides of March. Right. Yeah. Yeah, with George Clooney. That's right. And
Ryan Gosling.
Right, Ryan Gosling. And are you enjoying the political thrillers that we're doing? It's a little bit of a shift from the crime stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't like some of the actors, but it actually was a good movie. But it shows real life what's going on, how cutthroat they are, that movie.
Oh yeah, the Ides of March, definitely. So even in this one, although it's unrealistic premise, the brainwashing stuff, trying to place somebody, no matter what it takes, no matter how many laws you violate, in the position of power so that you can benefit is, well, I mean, look at Joe, Joe's for sale, right? That's clearly, obviously, mainstream media is ignoring it.
Joe's a puppet.
Joe's a puppet, right?
Joe has not run this country at all. He's the figurehead, and that's it.
Well, and his family's making money off him, and
Yep.
It's just amazing that the mainstream media won't even cover it, and the Democrats turn a blind eye to it, But hey, let's bring on our second guest, Cliff Yates, and Cliff Yates also has a podcast, The Cliff Yates Show, and he's a retired sergeant from LASD as well. Also worked in upstate New York, and he is also another California refugee. Although he was from somewhere else, came to California, and then wisely got his pension and got the hell out. How you doing, Cliff?
I'm doing fantastic, and coincidentally, I'm actually the host of the Cliff Yates Show, and who would have thought that?
Yeah,
Good
Cliff.
name.
Yeah, he didn't want anybody to make a mistake in his name. That's not a pseudonym. That's his real name too.
That's the real thing, man. I'm out there in the public. I'm unveiled and I'm vulnerable and open, and you can find me there.
You know, I obviously I do a lot of shows and I do more political shows, but I get attacked regularly on Twitter because I post on Twitter as well. So I put stuff on Twitter, and God, I can't even remember. I do so many shows that I forget what I did the last week, but I put it out there. Sometimes I'll just put out there something that's really like I'm going to do. I got a subject I've been focused on, the fair and just prosecution. It's a shadowy organization that has been enforcing what their expectations are for Soros-funded DAs. It's funded by George Soros through a secondary organization. And I actually had a gal on my show, Kim Ogg, the DA of Harris County, and she was progressive, but not progressive enough, so they primaried her, right? And so I just talked about that, right, on my Twitter thing, and fair and just prosecution, Cliff, if you want to look it up. And
Yep,
after I did my show, the Daily Wire did an article on it, and so I beat them out. Fox did a little bit on it, and who was it? The Media Resource Center did a lengthy article on it, and so I'm going to probably do a full show on it. I just touched on it as I talked to Kim Ogg, and I just posted on that, and I got all these attacks from these people on Twitter or bots or whatever the heck they are, regarding Trump. And I'm like, I didn't say one word about Trump. What is, so anytime you put anything conservative, you get attacked, well, you're voting for this one. I didn't, there's nothing here about who I'm voting for. I'm just laying out how fair and just prosecutions funded by George Soros, it operates, how they enforce what George Soros wants, and that these people have to make a commitment to what he believes in, otherwise they get primaried. That's what I'm pointing. It has nothing to do with the campaign, and of course, well, he's a convicted felon. What does it have to do with what I'm talking about here, right?
Nothing.
And yeah, so they it's just these deflections they do all the time.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Deflecting.
Yeah, it's deflecting, yeah. So, and when that's why I kind of enjoying some of these political thrillers, because to some degree, it's reality that we have wealthy people and wealthy corporations manipulating the political process to get the candidate they want, right? And we see that a lot in the Democratic Party these days, right? I mean, just what's going on with Kamala, Joe was clearly out of step. He'd been probably out of step for a long time, but I don't think they used mind control. They just took advantage of the fact that he was out of step and hit him in the basement, used various election techniques during COVID to get him elected. And once he was elected, somebody else is actually running the government, not Joe, right? And then when he clearly is going to lose to Trump, this is what they did. The wealthy elite withdrew their money, and the political elite and Democratic Party panicked, and they moved Joe out and brought Kamala in. If that doesn't show the parallels that we saw in Ides of March, how they manipulated things, and on our last show, and then this one, the Manchurian Candidate, I don't think anything will. And it's crazy that most people, most of the Democrat, it's really this hate of Trump is driving people to look past all the abuses or the lack of democratic process that's used in a Democratic Party. It's okay because it's against Trump, so I'll let anything go, which is shocking to me. But that's what's going on. What do you think, John? Am I?
Oh, I agree. The only reason they hate Trump is he used to be a Democrat, and he stepped in as a Republican because he saw where the Democrats were going, and he beat their gifted child, Hillary.
Hillary.
And they hate her. They hate him. God forbid,
Yeah, it's crazy. So, Cliff, what do you think? You think I'm onto something? These political movies, a reality, pop culture influences a movie, or reality influences movies, and movies influence reality, right?
I think you're right on. You can actually do a parallel of these in these movies, how these candidates are installed, you could make the argument not only was Joe Biden, but that Kamala Harris was installed. She is someone who has not received one vote. They put her in. They moved him out and put her in. She wasn't voted by the people into that position.
Yeah.
She had less than 1% of any Democrat votes during the primaries, and they moved her ass in. Yep.
Yeah, now she's on this charm campaign where she won't talk to anybody, which is crazy. You know, I think maybe she's the Manchurian candidate just because, you know, her leftist policies. I mean, she wants to do price controls. I mean, this is right out of the old Soviet Union, right out of, you know, North Korea and Cuba. Price controls, right? Let's do price controls. I mean, they had those in the 70s and they failed, and they got rid of them, right? Nixon,
Nixon
had them,
screwed everything up.
and they continued that foolishness, and then finally, you know, Reagan came in and says, we got to get rid of this stuff. It's just causing it's causing, because price controls cause scarcity, right? Because if you control the price and people can't make money to make something, or they can't make enough money, they invest in something else to make money, and or they just, they just keep their powder, right? They don't invest in anything. They just throw it in the bank and let the inflate. Because here's the deal: if you got $1 million in the bank and inflation hits, all the assets you own go up in value. So, right? So rich people do okay, right? Clearly unfair prosecution against Trump's case of financial fraud by prosecutors. Yeah, absolutely. And
that's a gimme. Yep.
I actually think that's going to be an easy one that'll be overturned. It just, once it gets, I actually think the New York Appeals Court will overturn it, because, I mean, one of the things they did in the trial is they brought up all of his sexual stuff. And they recently had a criminal case in there with Harvey Weinstein, in which they brought in a lot of prejudicial information about Harvey Weinstein, a despicable person, I might add. And the Supreme Court, or the Appeals Court in New York, said, you can't do that. And they overturned one of those convictions. Could you write a more unlikely fake scenario? Yeah, and Manchurian candidate. Yeah, I think there's some brainwashing. Some of this stuff is really price controls in New York, rent controls are instructive. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you put rent controls in place, that every economist says that you'll reduce the number of units available for rent. Yes, it reduces the stock of rent. Price controls only create scarcity, because people if they can't make a buck, they can't make a reasonable buck, then they don't want to.
It's communism, plain and simple.
Yeah, and then she's claiming that there's price gouging going on, and this is, you guys aren't in California, so I'll tell you what's going on. It's a playbook that Newsom's been playing for 6 years. Gas prices go up, and he says, well, the oil companies are price gouging.
They're making more money than they ever have before.
Right, because they're selling more oil, right? They're selling more gas, and the price of it's. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. You guys don't know this, but when we went to get a tax holiday, they gutted that bill in Sacramento, and they passed another bill, and they said the gas tax will now be tied to inflation. So here's the deal: they never have to go for another increase in the gas tax.
It automatically.
The Democrats can pass terrible policies that cause inflation, and inflation only increases gas prices. They can shut down drilling, and they will always get their cut. It will always go up with inflation. The oil companies and the gas companies, they have to look at their margins to see if they're marketable, if they could sell it. But the state will always get their cut, and that's the part that they hide from the Californians. I didn't know it's automatic elevator based upon inflation. Crazy. But she's stealing those lines from Gavin, because they've worked for 6 years for Gavin, although he's wearing out his
welcome.
His welcome. The teeth and the hair just ain't cutting it anymore for him, right? It's when they see the teeth, they just know a lie's coming.
Exactly.
And, so I don't know. It's what this show. What I like about this show is it does show the corporations' influence, and with Kamala Harris, clearly it's very wealthy people, including, I'm sure, the green, because she's a green energy person, we're cutting it off because Joe will lose and we'll lose money, right? That absolutely is what is going on. And what do you think, John? Am I onto something there?
Totally agree.
Totally agree.
You can't hit it any harder. I didn't know about the inflation index. That really explains a lot in California.
That's and these are Democrats who are supposed to be there for the common man. Scumbags. Yes, scumbags. I think that what made the 1960s original was a very classic was that it was all about corruption and the fear of communism because well, I mean, yes, it was they were doing brainwashing. The communists were taking our soldiers and brainwashing them, making them give statements.
But she sold out to the communisms in that movie.
Right, but I'm trying to focus on because the reality of brainwashing. Yes, brainwashing can happen when you isolate people, you torture them, and you've seen it with cults. You do see this stuff happening. I mean, we had who was the lady that was kidnapped by the Sudanese Liberation Army? They kind of brainwashed her, Patty Hearst, and we did see that with soldiers who were captured by the North Koreans. They were brainwashed, and some of them stayed there. And they're probably messed up for their entire life, even after they're freed to get. But I think once you get away from those influences, it isn't quite the same, And in the original Manchurian Candidate, it was kind of a lifelong thing that they were able to control this guy for a couple of decades. At least in the new version, they use technology to continue to reinforce that control, right? Which makes it a little more believable. It's all still science fiction, but but it makes it a little more interesting. Hey, thanks for the comment, Slosher Fred, and good morning to you. Hey, let's roll the first scene. This is with Denzel Washington. Then we can talk about the great actor Denzel Washington. So this is him in Kuwait, and I think he's just here's his one of the advisors from the Manchurian Corporation. I notice how they named the corporation the Manchurian to keep that connection. And there's our other great actor, Levi.
Liev.
Say it again. Liev.
Liev.
Liev. How do you say his last name again?
Schreiber.
See, John is I always kept him around at work because he's the guy that got me right. He kept everything, all the punctuation right, all that stuff right, and corrected me when I was wrong. He said, "Hey, dummy, that's this, right?"
Haven't seen all my typos on Facebook.
Okay, so the wife of Zuckerberg gave $2.5 million to a proposition that's on the ballot, CAC1, to reduce the threshold from Prop 13 from 2/3 vote to 55% for local government. $2.5 million is what she gave to overturn a portion of Prop 13, so that they could tax us more. So that they get I guess she'll get some tax relief because they'll tax the middle class more. So maybe the billionaires
That's disgusting.
Pay more. Yeah,
that's just going to burden the middle class again, as usual.
As usual.
Scum.
Yeah.
They've been trying to overturn it for 40 years.
Yeah, well, now they have the supermajority in the legislature, so they don't even have to. The legislature can put initiatives on the ballot because they have that 2/3, and so that before they lose it, they want to try and undercut Prop 13 because they're not looking real good this election cycle. They may lose their supermajority. And but here Denzel, he's in Kuwait. This is where it starts. This is it's a setup, and they have somebody with them who works for the Manchurian Corporation, which we see later in the movie. And of course, obviously, our troopers don't know it's a setup. Major Marco, or is Captain Marco in this scene, but he ends up being Major Marco later, Denzel. He obviously doesn't know it's a setup. But they get set up, ambushed, and we'll see later. But he ends up getting kidnapped, and they end up getting kidnapped and then brainwashed using technology to do it. And as I watched the show, obviously our main character, Mr. Shaw, the guy gets brainwashed to become the presidential candidate or vice presidential candidate. When I watch him in these initial scenes, it seemed like he knew something was going to happen. he didn't get along with the guards. He pulled away from them. He was kind of lethargic, and it seemed like he was resigned to the fact that something was going to happen, and that his guys were going to. I don't know. That's what I got out of it. What did you think, John? Did you think that maybe?
I personally thought that they had already been giving him some types of drugs for the brainwashing, because he just wasn't altogether there. Like when the team's all talking shit about him and joking around, and he comes in and just looks at him, stares, doesn't say a thing. Then he walks away, and they're all like, "What the fuck?" Well, I just think there was something. They were already inundating him with some of those drugs to get him ready for the brainwashing. And then when they got ambushed, and later on, all of a sudden he gets a Medal of Honor, and the guy that was the ride-along from Manchurian Corporation, he disappeared during that shootout. Everybody else either died or was captured, and nobody sees that guy again until later in the movie.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. I thought it was him who knocked out Captain Marco here, and knocked out Denzel during the game. He was part of it.
They don't see him.
Yeah, because the person who most likely could have turned that in the right way was Denzel. In fact, it was him who immediately got on the 50 and was shooting at the helicopters.
Yep.
And when he got out, is when he got knocked out. So yeah, this was a setup. Yeah, you're probably right. They probably already started working on him, knowing that this was coming. And
it was changing his personality.
Well, later on you'll see that he had kind of a distant personality from folks, but it was interesting too, because I don't know if I was the guy in charge, if I'd had the least friendly guy with me in the car. I'd have been picking somebody that thought like me, understood where I was trying to go with stuff, and understood because sometimes you can express an opinion and you like have somebody that maybe can shape it a little different viewpoint. This guy couldn't do anything, just to be able to transmit it to the troops. I have a thought, and that's why you have sergeants, lieutenants, because they can say, "Oh, this is what the captain said." What? Okay, how do we sell this to the troops, right? And that just wasn't the guy. And not mine. What do you think, Cliff?
Yeah, definitely. I thought that was the purpose of that one scene was to show that he was already acting strange. The troops all noticed this, and like when he opened the back of the door of the Humvee there, and then they were going gambling, and then he left the scene there. They all commented on that. So I think that was the kind of the purpose, to show that the troops already see that he's acting strange.
In this scene, Denzel is giving a presentation to a bunch of Boy Scouts. Now it's going to be Boy Scout. It's going to be Scouts, boys and girls.
Yeah.
No more Boy Scouts.
Don't get me started on that.
I had to throw that out there because, okay, this is a historical reference that won't exist anymore, because now it's Scouts and it's got to be boys and girls. And, because, hey, we can't have anything that it's just set up for boys. That's all discriminatory and crazy.
Yep. And boys will be selling cookies now.
And boys will be selling cookies now. Well, I don't know. I was in the Scouts for a little bit. We used to, I think it was every fall we would have a fundraiser where a local bakery would bake really hot, fresh donuts, hot.
Right.
And we would deliver them, and they were the glazed donuts. They were fantastic. And, that's one of the ways we made money. And then we did the paper drives. You go collect the newspapers and get some money for that. That's how we funded the troop. I only did it for a couple of years. Let me just say, doing the winter survival class or field trip in the middle of January convinced me I didn't want to be a Boy Scout anymore. It's too damn cold. These people want to hang out in the woods when it's 10 below. That's not what I wanted to do. So I said, I guess I probably knew then when I was 11 that I'm moving to a warmer climate, right? Because I grew up in Michigan. That cured me of wanting to be a Boy Scout again. But after this, here's our other actor, Jeffrey Wright. He plays the Corporal Al Melvin in here, and he is having dreams, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. Marco's also having dreams. Denzel's also having dreams, but he doesn't confirm that with Melvin here, which is surprising to me.
No, he doesn't want to look weak. He doesn't want to look like he's going crazy. So he kind of poo-poos it, but then it sticks in his head that he ain't the only one.
Yeah, I think right, and he's generous and gregarious, and I really like this actor. I've seen him in so many different stuff. He's very good.
Jeffrey Wright, yeah.
Oh, he's very good.
Well, he was in
Very
Ides of
good.
March. He played the guy that gave North Carolina delegates to Clooney and got a
Yes.
cabinet
Yes.
post.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what'd you think of the scene? So he's, what I think I would have said, yeah, I mean, John, come on, John. We did the interview of the guys who were impacted by the Chatsworth train crash, and we shared our own experiences because it was the right thing to do with those guys because they were very emotional. These guys were having some issues, so you have to.
Yep.
So I was surprised that as a character he didn't share that, and because you find out he's having dreams, right?
Yep.
So
Yep, he was. And Jeffrey Wright plays. It's almost like he's homeless
Yeah.
and addicted. And I mean, and nobody wants to believe him because, hey, he's homeless, he's addicted, PTSD, leave him alone, stay away from him. Yeah. And they were doing that on purpose to make sure he looked that way.
Yeah, and you get the sense that all of them were eventually targeted and killed so that they could not disrupt this eventually. So you see it. Shaw gets regular treatment and attention. All these other guys that have been brainwashed, once they told the story about his Medal of Valor thing, they were more of a liability than an asset. So they weren't treated. They weren't kept in any kind of. They were allowed to just deteriorate, right? And
Right.
so Cliff, hey, on this show, obviously I don't think it's realistic what happened here, but clearly in the initial scenes, Shaw was shown as being the hero, and they implanted these. So what do you think? It's kind of more obviously science fiction, the whole brainwashing thing. What do you think of that whole concept?
Yeah, I don't know. There is some history of some experimentation, right, with the military and whatnot. But I also want to bring up an actor that it's funny because I didn't realize I had seen him many times at Faith Community Church in West Covina, and his wife also a very pretty famous gospel singer. And then I saw him in the credits and I go, what? So B.B. Winans plays an FBI agent who is a 6-time Grammy winner. And I saw him many times at Faith Community Church in West Covina. And I'm pretty sure he's a conservative because I know Jim Caviezel was there many times, and also Terry Crews was at Faith Community. But B.B. Winans was one of the FBI guys.
Yeah, that's you're right.
Well, when you get into politics, I mean, I like Denzel. He doesn't really clarify what
No.
he is. He stays out of it, and I think he's made it pretty clear. Hey, I'm an actor. I want everybody to watch my shows. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing some of the stuff he says, and he doesn't get into the hate the cop thing.
No, he doesn't.
In fact, he did a ride along with an LAPD guy who ended up making captain. LAPD then went on to be the chief of police in Detroit. And, so he had this positive impression of cops, at least in those interactions, and he refused to jump on the I hate all cops bandwagon. So good for him. I mean, I wouldn't say he speaks out for us, but, he's not piling on, right? So I do like that. And I Denzel Washington's one of those guys I can watch in just about any movie. I like the Equalizer series, although he's getting
that was really
long
good.
in the tooth to play the tough guy, kind of like Lane Nielsen. But you know what? I like when he hits his watch. Okay, he works it all out in his brain. How he visualized how he's going to take out the bad guys.
Oh yeah,
hits his watch.
I like that too. Yeah,
yeah. It's because you wonder, okay, what's he going to do here? And so I do enjoy the Equalizer series. Of course, I enjoyed.
Me too. I
can't think of a movie that I've seen him in that I didn't like. What was the one where he was playing with Gene Hackman, Crimson? Where the
Tide.
Crimson, yeah, the submarine stuff.
The submarine.
They were both excellent in that movie.
Oh yeah,
they were. Oh yeah,
very intense, both of them.
And
element actors.
Gene Hackman was teaching him leadership stuff, and he wasn't getting it. I think later on he figured it out in that movie. But
he did.
So I can't think of a movie that I didn't like Denzel.
I'll tell you,
Washington
Denzel can do some acting. When he did Training Day.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was like, dude, really? Wow.
That was one of the first movies I did, and guess who I had on? Anthony Shapiro.
Oh.
So because he was the undercover expert for the department for a long time, and he told some stories about what he went through on that show, and he said, yeah, some of this stuff, it's being undercover is incredibly dangerous and it's scary. And particularly when they were, Ethan Hawke was in the movie, right?
Yeah.
And they were going to kill him. He says, yeah, I got trapped into a place and I had to fight my way out because they wanted to give me a shot of heroin, right, to see if I was really a hype. And he says, I won't tell you everything that happened there, but it was ugly. And he says that brought back memories when he saw that. Let's see. Useful for a short moment. Then they were made less credible. Corrupt police will call a person unruly, disorder, and crazy tactics used. Yeah, I'm not sure where you're getting at there. Corrupt police will call them. Trust me, when we're dealing with people, good cops should be respected. Yeah, when we're dealing with people, lots of times they are, here's the thing, and you guys can chime in, and then we got to get back to the movie here. When you learn early on in your career, I'd rather talk a guy to jail than fight him to jail, right? And then fight him,
Right.
Because no matter what happens, you get hurt in a fight. Win, lose, draw, you're going to get hurt in some way. So if you could talk him to jail, that's what you want to do. That's why it drives me crazy. We need to teach the cops de-escalate. You learn that. You learn it right away anyways, even when I came on. But you learn through trial and error. That's the best way to go. And the ones that you end up fighting are the drunks, the ones that are unruly, the ones that are crazy. They won't calm down. And that's what we have to do. Liked him in Pellegrin Brief. We did that show too. Yeah, that was a good movie. Okay, let's
a hell of an actor.
Yes, he is. Let's roll.
He's a good Christian and a hell of an actor.
Let's roll. Obsession is the next scene I got here, right? And so it's interesting that they do the brainwashing, and then it leads to certain obsessions that these guys have. Now, one of them is the ramen noodles. I'm like, what the hell are the ramen noodles all about? Everybody's eating ramen noodles, right?
Yeah, that's all he had in his refrigerator.
Yeah, but that's what they were feeding them when they were kidnapped and brainwashed, is ramen noodles. And so they, during this brainwashing process, that got imprinted in their brain as something that they wanted to eat. I don't know. Can you survive on ramen noodles?
Probably.
I don't think I've never had ramen noodles, so I don't even know what they taste like. Are they any good?
Well, they're not really good for you. There are noodles out there like yakisobe that are pretty good, but the ramen is just so much sodium in it. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
No,
well, right, but it shows the connection. I mean, because even what's his name is eating noodles. His is in a bowl, and Shaw's is in a bowl when they meet, and Denzel just eats them out of the
out of the box,
right out of the packaging. Yeah. But yeah, ramen noodles, and the other thing is, I just wrote here the controlling mom. I think we eventually see a Meryl Streep coming up here, and she plays there's John. Is that John Voight? I think it is.
Yep.
Yes. And she plays this incredibly controlling mom. And all I could think of is, oh my God, how does anybody get ahead with a controlling this controlling, right? Because you're afraid to make any decision, right? Because unless your mom. There he is. He's eating the ramen noodles. So it shows Denzel now he's eating ramen noodles, but he's eating it out of. Clearly, he's from the upper class because he's eating it out of a bowl and not the cup.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, but now, Meryl Streep, I don't know if you've noticed it, but you look at her haircut and everything in the beginning. That's Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, you think that's who they were trying to present as? I couldn't get it, so I'm going to get my son in there.
They gave that look on purpose.
Right. Yeah, there she is, right? That her. So what'd you think of the, Meryl Streep, the great Meryl Streep? She is, I don't like her politics, but she is a good actress. Sophie's Choice.
Hell of an actress.
I think, remember, she was the Deer Hunter. And
yeah.
Cliff, what do you think of Miss Streep there?
Well, and they showed it in the movie. Just to go back a second, they showed it in the movie, but we used to love seeing the ramen noodles thing in Times Square with the steam coming out the top. But that was a real ad that was there in Times Square. And also, we'll probably come to it later, but it was very eerie what Meryl Streep said when they were setting up Denzel to be the sniper. When she said, "They always take out the assassin so the country can heal." It was so weird as to what just happened, right? Oh, my
I know.
God.
Yeah. Because they took out Trump's sniper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we did was the Pelican Brief involved assassinations, right? And so then this show has assassination attempts in it, and which is why I'm enjoying doing these political shows during the political season because there's so many parallels to surprisingly there's so many parallels. I mean, if you think about it, in this show, we talked about it a little bit. The wealthy elite, some of them no doubt corporations, withdrew their support for Joe Biden until they got a candidate change.
Yes.
Talk about power. 14 million people voted for Joe. Damn, I don't usually swear on the show, but screw them. I want somebody else. And I heard one of the big benefactors was Roy Disney's daughter or granddaughter or something like that. And she pulled back all her funding, and she encouraged everybody else who were billionaires and multimillionaires to pull back their funding, and it all dried up. And that was the big push. And additionally, Joe was getting stubborn, and I don't blame him. I'm not a fan, but hey, I still feel like I'm ready to go. I don't think he was.
No,
but then,
his wife was pushing him. That skank.
Yeah, well, I think Hunter wanted cover too, so I think he was pushing it.
Oh yeah.
He needed to stay president to keep his family out of prison is what I'm thinking was happening. But and then Nancy Pelosi, they all just turned on him. These are the same people that are accusing the Republicans of being anti-democratic, right? This is what they're doing, right?
Exactly. You always accuse your enemy of doing what you do, and you say it long enough and loud enough, people start to believe it. It's part of the Communist Manifesto.
That is right. It is. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Denzel Washington can act in a quiet way, showing the viewers the thought process. Yeah, he does, and he can say a lot just with an expression. That's why he's so good, in my opinion. And he does a lot of the movies there. Hey guys, they just watch and they just escape into the movie, right? Movies are about escapes, right? You just escape into the movie, right? That's what it's all about. And he takes you into that escape. It doesn't, and that's what you like about him. And I just remember when he was in when he played the character in Training Day.
Oh.
Yeah, it was classic. That it was this self-confident. I got the world by the tail. I could do this. I'm in charge, and he was just so good, right? And then other shows just see him as more vulnerable, and he's pretty good at that. I think he was the movie The Bone Collector, wasn't he? Seriously injured, and he's
that was
and he was guiding. I think it was Julia Roberts. Wasn't she in the? I can't remember who the female was now, but so he can present this confidence and vulnerability, and in this one he kind of does both. He's portraying confidence as an officer, but he really is pretty vulnerable. But that's what I liked about him. And Meryl Streep, I just remember her from The Deer Hunter, Miss Sophie's Choice. Just a lot
Angelina
of
Jolie, Bone
Collector.
Yeah.
She was in the Bone Collector. So
he's a hell of an actor though. This guy can play anything. He's played heroes and guys that are CIA assassins in Safe House. I mean, the guy plays everything, and he plays lawyers. He plays meek, mild-mannered people. He played
Philadelphia.
Devil
he played
in the Blue Dress, one of his original movies. I mean, the guy was just great.
But he'll play. He doesn't have to be the lead in every movie, even as he's a big star. Like, remember what was the one with Meg Ryan? It was where he played the officer investigating her Desert Storm thing.
It was the Medal of Honor thing where,
and
for a medal.
And she was really the main focus. But he's willing to step down and take a secondary role. Yeah, Courage Under Fire. That's it. A secondary role. And I like that about him. But that also makes him such a good actor, right? I think that he's willing to. He doesn't have to be the leading man every time. He could be a supporting actor, and I don't think I see Meryl Streep in a lot. Well, she's kind of she's got a leading role in this one. She's more of a leading role person in this one. It's not a secondary one, but
for the most part in this movie.
but yeah, it's I'm thinking mind control then mommy control, right? These are both kind of the same thing with
Oh,
this
and it
guy,
gets
right?
even stickier at the end.
I know. Oh, I know. It was so weird at the end. Anyways, I like this. Democracy is not negotiable, right? These are some of the comments I would say. I have faced the enemy. These are just some of the things that were said. Democracy is not negotiable. That's one of the things he said, but it really is negotiable, right?
Oh,
We just saw it with Joe Biden. Of course it's negotiable. You know, you just had 14 million people vote for him, and well, wait a minute, we might lose. Let's negotiate our way out of this. You know, I'm waiting to see, will Joe pardon Hunter, or will Kamala?
Well,
pardon
something's
Hunter?
going to happen because yesterday the Supreme Court, one of the appellate courts, he asked for his tax evasion charges to be dropped, and they said, nope, you're going to trial, dude. So something's going to happen here pretty soon.
Joe will wait till the final day, but if Joe wanted to sabotage the Democrats, he'd pardon them today.
Yeah.
If he was really angry, he'd pardon him today. But based upon what I saw last night, I don't think it. He did play the pilot who saved the plane in the movie.
Alcoholic pilot.
Oh yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. Kind of a play on Sully Sullenberg's landing of the plane, but only with a lot more drama behind the pilot. Let's roll the scene they meet, and this is the first time that Shaw and Marco meet, I guess, after all the drama and hoopla of him getting his Medal of Valor. And there he is. I always like nice, the nice clean. I like these military uniforms, nice and clean.
Yeah, good.
I think I like the Marines better, but this good, nice, clean army.
And I don't know if it's accurate or not because I was not in the military. A lot of military guys will tell you whether it's accurate or not, because a lot of times it's not. They got something on the wrong side, or
yeah.
But it looks sharp.
The formal dress looks good, and
looks sharp.
I think if you're officer, you should wear that. I mean,
I think in this scene, this is where, he had already been talked to by Jeffrey Wright, telling him his dreams and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And Liev Schreiber doesn't recognize him right away. Takes him a couple times to tell him who he is, then he kind of remembers. And that right there, I think it starts something clicking in his brain saying, wait a minute, something's wrong here. Because he's already talked to Jeffrey Wright. Now he's seeing what's wrong with this guy.
Well, he already knows we see it. He already knows that it comes out in the movie that, yes, I'm having memories too, and I'm seeking treatment, and they're saying it's PSTD and all this other stuff. But this actress here, I had to write down Jocelyn, just her blue eyes. Eventually you'll see she has these great blue eyes, and very beautiful lady. See, she's got kind of those clear,
Yep.
He liked her when they were growing up. This was the only interest he had as a teen, I guess, and his mom didn't allow that to happen. The controlling mom didn't allow it to happen.
She kept him away from all women.
She kept him away from all women. Yeah, it gets really weird at the end, just the way it implies, some bad juju at the end between mom and son. But
Oedipus Rex complex.
Oh, is that? Yeah, that's right. It's
mom love.
Mom love, yeah. Okay,
that comes from Oedipus in the Greek times when his father was dead, but he had sex with his mom. It was in love with his mom. Right. This is kind of reversed because she is coming on to her son.
Yeah.
And I think what's also intimated is she had something to do with her husband dying because he could have been president, but he just gave it all up. And so he was taken out a long time ago, and now she's in love with her son. But anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it just kind of, those comments that she says that. So Joe Biden's the one pushing for Joe to stay, right? And he gives it up, right? And probably a little bit. There's in today's last night and today, early this morning, they were talking about how a lot of people close to Joe are still angry about how this played out. And they imply that Jill is, and some of the leading aides are. Yeah, and I kind of don't blame them, right? And
Right.
right, so. But you kind of. I just this whole controlling. She wants to be with Hillary. Her staying with Bill and then going after all of the ladies that he was a lech, right? And he
Oh
was a
yeah.
predator. And then as soon as one of those things popped out, Hillary was the attack dog that took him out. This is why every time I talk to somebody who says, well, Hillary could have been our first, she represented females. No, she didn't.
No, she didn't.
How can you say that? Look what she did to, Bill was a lech. Bill went after people. Look what they did to Monica Lewinsky, and it was
And
Hillary
Paula,
Clinton.
I forgot her last name.
Paula Jones and
the one that he had to
Kathleen
pay
Willey,
$800,000.
and it was Hillary Clinton who orchestrated how they were going to deal with the women. And in fact, the guy that carried the football, he was on another podcast with Bill. He said because he had to follow Bill around everywhere because he's got the football. He said, oh yeah, it was Hillary Clinton that took charge with Paula Jones and
Oh yeah.
and Monica, and orchestrated how they were going to handle it. Told him what he had to say and what he had to do, and Bill followed her lead. And so that's why I'm like, I can't see her as all she is about power. She's not there for women. Women
No,
are the
never
women.
was,
The women.
never will be.
The women's vote was just a means to an end for her. It wasn't.
Yeah, just like in the beginning when she was a Watergate lawyer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that. And the head of the Watergate, he was a Democrat. He fired her. He fired her for incompetence and lying and cheating. She was trying to make up evidence and stuff like that. So he fired her. But she keeps going on.
Yep.
And that was in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Fired her ass.
Here's
of course, she had when she was a defense attorney, she had I think it was a 14-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl that was raped. And she got the guy off because she confused the little girl on the stand. And her joke was, well, we showed her, she didn't, and they asked her, well, don't you feel for the victim? Oh, fuck her. She was laughing. She thought it was hilarious. And people think she's big for women? No.
Here's another great character actor. He was in To Live and Die in L.A. I forget his name now. And when they're a regular meeting with Marco, so clearly there's something going on. Clearly this conspiracy is bigger than we know.
That's Jose Ferrar.
Is that okay? And what's his name?
Yeah.
The Manchurian Corporation has connections to the military, and so they're monitoring Marco here. He's now a major, but you see somebody's in the room paying attention, and you eventually find out that person is. Hey, we got to follow this guy. There's something going on, and that's the FBI, who apparently, basically, this is the black lady who ends up coming in and monitoring him closely. And so clearly there's influence going on, but not everybody's part of this conspiracy. And so the FBI starts monitoring Marco to see what is going on and what's really going on, and try and understand what is this all about, because it's confusing, right? And so in this case, the FBI plays the good guys.
Yeah, for a while anyway.
Yeah, today the FBI seems to be in full cover-up mode. I mean, with the whole Russiagate.
Well, and they cover this up later. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the scene, Cliff? Clearly, this is the military-industrial complex trying to have it's implied they're trying to have their own way, and it was Eisenhower who said, "Beware of the military-industrial complex." Right?
Yeah, it's funny that he said that so long ago, and it just seems to be really in play now that with all these, to me. So if you look at it politically, right, we're kind of being attacked on three fronts, right? We got the border, Islam, and China. Now, I haven't fact-checked this, but I think relating to what's going on today, what I've heard is that Kamala's husband owns a weather balloon company that's, tied to China. And you got Tim Walz from Minnesota, obviously. And I heard it during the convention. If you could have thought 23 years after 9/11 that they would be asking for the Muslim vote, you wouldn't believe it. And they're all, I mean, they're painting Trump as going to be this warmonger. Well, he's already been president, and he didn't start any wars, and there was no wars when he was in.
He was ending them.
Yeah, which is against what they want, like tied to what Pat just said. The military-industrial complex is alive and well, and I don't know if it's true. A man named Sean Ryan, he's a former SEAL. Yep. But he showed movies of that they were having a parade. I don't know if it's true of all the tanks and the helicopters, and they were celebrating that us leaving Afghanistan and leaving them all this equipment, and they're marching it all down in Afghanistan. Just crazy.
It was true. Sean Ryan's got a great podcast if you ever watch his podcast.
Yeah, some of those are 5 hours long. I love them. Yeah.
I was earlier this week. I was on NYPD. Retired, MAT's finest, retired and unfiltered. So, and it's pretty good. They go 2 hours every morning on, are they on Rumble? I think they're on YouTube. And so I went on one of their shows for a lengthy discussion, and so then I drop in every now and then the last few days, and then I was on Spaces. They asked me to join a show called Night Court last night. It was on Spaces on Twitter. I've only done that a couple of times, and I participated. And it was Liz Collins who wrote the book They're Lying, and then the documentary The Fall of Minneapolis. So it's really good what they talk about, and we got into a lot of subjects. It's good, and I have to tell you, it gave me a lot of people follow me on Twitter now from New York, which was partly my goal, and so hopefully my audience will continue to grow on Briefing with the Chief. Hey, let's roll the next. I could just call this one Sergeant Shaw, and this is where Denzel and Marco and Shaw finally get a chance to talk, right? So here he is, and you're right, John. He's bigger today than he was in this movie. He's a little lean, but for Ray Donovan, he was in the series Ray Donovan.
Oh yeah,
he's
Ray Donovan,
and he's bigger, right? He plays, and when he played Saber in the
Sabretooth in X-Men.
In the X-Men, kind of the nemesis of Wolverine, right?
His brother from another mother.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
300 years.
Yeah. So, but eventually, this is where they finally. Actually, I think they eventually talk. And so he goes in, and this is the part that becomes unrealistic. He goes into a room, and he goes into the closet, and the closet wall is moved, and he goes into this place where they got this chair set up, and they're going to do surgery. This is the part that becomes completely unrealistic. And I'm of the opinion on conspiracies. If you have a conspiracy with a lot of people, somebody's going to start talking. It's going to get out there, right?
That's why a lot of people are dead.
Because
no pun intended.
Certainly in this, the soldiers aren't really part of the conspiracy. They're victims in this, but yeah, most of them are dead now, right? The worst part for many is the denial, then admitting without explanation. We expect frame stories and a bit of shading.
Eastland's correct.
Yeah, to accept. And so, but and this one, when they bring him into that room though, and they use the probe to go into his brain, I'm like, okay, I don't want to watch this part. I can't think of this needle that goes all the way into your brain. I realize I could not have been a medical professional because I get a little squeamish and all that stuff.
Yeah, me neither. Wow.
But I'm curious. I know that they have technology that they can now implant in your brain to help with other things like hearing and other stuff. So
Parkinson's, a lot of stuff.
So this technology is coming along. This, of course, is way far-fetched, but there is technology to help with the dysfunctions of the brain, so to speak. I just don't want to be the guy doing it. So here's our rogue doctor, our bad guy doctor, and that's another one. Okay, so we have to have this rogue doctor.
Oh, is that Fauci under a mask? Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think it is.
But of course, he's from South Africa, right? So
exactly,
so rogue doctor from South Africa. We got to have all these. So what do you think? I mean, this is technology. We're not there yet on this mind control, but
we don't know if we're there or not.
Well, nanotechnology is getting to the point where it's very helpful in a lot of things, right? I mean, whether it's putting a defibrillator in your chest that could recognize when your heart is out of the rhythm to bring you back into rhythm, or now helping the would say, no, not Fauci. This one was, in fact, competent. Okay, Martine, good job. But yeah, it's just this is far fetched, but it makes for a good movie making, right, Cliff?
Yeah, and they had to. I interviewed a guy who he sells cybersecurity for all of these implants you were alluding to, like the heart pacemakers and whatnot, because that's computer generated that it sends a message to the doctors. Well, that can be infiltrated by outside hackers, so they actually have security companies that guarantee the safety of these things because they could just shut people off in a second.
That's some scary shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, years ago, I thought I might have to get a defibrillator, which they kind of put in your chest, and
yep, that's right, they do now.
And realized my stuff isn't as serious that didn't require that. But
for AFib, yeah,
for AFib.
They just put one in my DI's. Great guy, Ben Hunt. He just got a pacemaker put in. Yesterday.
Well, they have new technology for AFib that's a little different, where it's not a pacemaker, but they put this little device in your heart that makes sure that blood is not pooling in. I think it's one of the lower ventricles. So they're constantly dealing with this little nanotechnology, little microtechnology to do good work, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of leery about socialized medicine, which is what what's her name wants. Harris wants. She wants, one of her proposals are that everybody goes on same medical. So if you have private medical insurance, it goes away, and you go on. And my assumption is it goes away, but the amount of money that the county pays for us is then goes into a pool to pay for everybody else. That's what I bet is the proposal.
Oh yeah,
I'm waiting to see it, because they have to get the money from somewhere. And so if they take, the premiums that we get that cover us after working for whatever, because you have to work 25 years to get it, right? They could just take it away from you by, bill, and then they take the money that funds medical insurance for myself and my wife, and they spread it around to everybody else. But then that reduces, investment in innovation, right?
Yeah, they're already set up for vaccine passports. They're just waiting to put that in. That's one thing we got to fight.
That's horseshit. Yeah.
Here's where it goes into the brain. Oh,
I don't like to see it either. Yeah.
So, I guess we're probably already rolling the implant scene. Is that, Martine? I think.
Yeah.
We already are. And I, it's the interesting thing is Raymond doesn't remember anything at this point, or at least he says he doesn't. I really believe it. He doesn't remember anything, but that's probably why they're doing the implant on him. They don't want him having scary nightmares, questioning what happened. And it's interesting when he finally does eventually talk to Marco, he says, I remember what the story is, but I don't remember it happening. And that's what everybody, because everybody else, they know the story, but they remember they're dreaming something else. And the dreaming of something else is being in a hospital and watching their friends get killed. And that's the other part of it. They used trauma and torture are used in real brainwashing.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
Whether it's a cult or something like that, in real brainwashing. And they used it here or in this movie as well, right? And so they
use it also in the movies with Matt Damon. What are the names of them when he plays the secret agent that can kill everybody? I can't think of the name.
Oh yeah. It's oh God. Well, you know what? Let's think about it after our commercial break. Born Identity. Hey, Martine, we are past the potty break, and I think can you roll the commercials? And we'll be back in a little bit, folks.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, There's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You also find us on Rumble. We do the show on Rumble as well. Penny, hello, and good morning to you. And so, hey, why don't we, the Bourne Identity was the question on who else played the mind control guy with Matt Damon. But let's roll the next scene, I Killed Baker. Now, one of the things that as we talked about, is using trauma as part of the torture to control the minds. And our main character here, Marco, keeps remembering that he killed somebody. That's what's coming in his dreams, right? And he keeps going through these. He's getting treatment. They tell him to get on his meds, and he just knows there's something there. And now, after he met with one of his other troopers, trooper saying, "I'm having dreams too." He knows that there's more to it than just PTSD, right? And he begins to question. This is where he's finally having a conversation with Shaw, and I really do like this scene because it's when he tackles him and bites the probe out of his back. Because what we see earlier in the movie, he gets hit on by the FBI agent, and he's staying with her, and he realizes there's something in his back, and he realizes it's a transmitter, but he loses it, and he has. This is the part that's far-fetched. He has a friend, a German friend, who understands all this technology, and he's questioning him about it. And so he realizes that there's probably a transmitter or something in Shaw's back as well. And it's the scene where he actually tackles him and bites his back and take it out. I thought that was fantastic action. And actually, after he bites it and you see his face, Denzel Washington looks crazed. And I'm sure this. He looks crazed, and of course Shaw doesn't prosecute, so he's released. But he's got his.
That's what I had a problem with.
Oh, that is far fetched, right? That he bit it out of his back.
Even if he didn't want to prosecute, that's understandable. But when you have something that does that, there would have been restraining orders. He would have been under 72-hour watch for 5150. I mean, they would have made the public see that he's crazy. There's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah.
But that was far-fetched, letting him get away with that.
Well, except that he's got to be the assassin, right? So he does get relieved, and he's got to play his role. And that's already been preordained what he's going to be doing, right? We find that out later. But he's he's solving this, right? And I just think it's actually it's probably, I think, one of the better scenes in the movie in terms of
Oh, it was well done.
It's unpredictable. You don't really know how he's going to, and then he does it, and you see him, and he bit me, right? And you're like, oh my God. First of all, how you get, and just to bite that out of his back, I don't know. To me, it was, and this is the scene where he's saying, yeah, I can tell you what happened, but I don't remember what happened. I think this is with Shaw. This is when he's explaining his feelings about what happened. And that is, and you are right, John. Or what is right here is all these guys have exactly the same story. That never happens in real life.
And they say the same words. Exactly.
They say the same words. You get a dozen people witnessing the same thing as we know as cops. Everybody will tell a different variation of the same story, right? Because they perceive it differently, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And
it's like the test they did in the academy. I don't know if you guys ever had one where a lecturer is talking, in walks somebody, they fire 3 rounds, blank gun, then they run out. And then the lecturer asks, okay, well, what do you look like? And you get 42 different descriptions of that person.
Yeah, that was great.
Yep. But they all perceive it differently, right? What'd you think of the scene, though, Cliff, too? Biting his back to getting the thing out and this whole interaction and questioning about the memories.
Yeah. I think it was a great scene. And like you said about we all see it differently. But it's funny, though, but when some of these left-leaning news agencies get their talking points, boy, they all repeat the same line, don't they? They can all do that in hundreds.
Yeah, mind control. Yeah, they do a conference call and they sprinkle some pixie dust, and everybody says, "Oh yeah, they're weird. Oh yeah,
we're all going to call everybody. They're going to be weird for the rest of the week.
Weird, right? For the rest of the week, yeah. And it's amazing how. And you're right. They have almost exactly the same talking points. So maybe there's a little mind control.
Exactly. Well, there's videos out there that will show you. They'll show ones in the BBC and in Europe. They'll show about 10 different ones here, and all of them have the same opening line.
And they sync them all together. It's so weird. Yeah. Oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what did you think about him biting the probe out of his back? And then the crazed look on Denzel's face. That's, we talked about earlier where Denzel can send a message or tell the story with a look, right?
Oh yeah.
He's desperate to try to, after he lost his, he's desperate to try to get somebody to believe him and to get, somebody to get some evidence. He's in a desperate position to try to, get some legitimacy to his argument here, to what's happening.
Right. And just some of the things it says, Remy, you don't believe his story. No, but he does a poor little nobody does a poor little tin soldier. So, they're denigrating Denzel's character too, right? He's saying this is the story. He's the poor little tin soldier, but actually, he's here's the thing too. He's a military officer, so he's got a certain bearing about him. He's got leadership about him, and he knows instinctively there's something wrong here, and he's acting based upon that leadership. And the curious thing, if they really wanted him to play a greater role in this, then you'd think they'd be doing the same thing with devices in his brain that they're doing with Shaw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they'd continue. The other guys are expendable, but Marco is not. He's got it. But of course, they don't want that device found in his brain when there's an autopsy done, right? When he's an assassin.
Right. That's right.
So there's, there's challenges on how they do this, but you would think, then they'd figure out a way to get to the body and, dispose of that somehow. But he's acting on his instinct that this just isn't right. I'm just kind of waiting for this scene to pop up where he bites him in the back. Right. And that's because I think that, like I said, I think that's the best scene in the movie. Right. And you can see just the pleading in his face. There's something there. There's something there. Come on, man. You got to remember. So I don't know, John, what do you think of the scene here? What do you think of this whole interaction?
When you have crazies, they'll do anything. And it was well done. But it just, to me, it's not realistic, the aftermath. because he would have been under at least for 72 hours, then let him out, then let him kill be the sniper.
Yeah, accusing Daniel of trying to make himself important and make himself. Oh yeah, I guess he's kind of doing that. But well, I but this is what they did to that whole platoon, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shaw is important. These guys were expendable, and and you have to think, Denzel. I mean, because he's getting ready to do his thing here, but he's also not just fighting for himself. He's fighting for all of his troops, the troopers that this happened to, right?
Right.
Ones that were killed, that he realizes were probably killed by himself and Shaw, and the ones that have since died, including the guy that was fished out. Was it the East River he was fished out of? Fished out of the river in New York, and he's Jeffrey Wright's character. Here we go with the biting scene. So he's not only doing it for himself, he's doing it for his troopers.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
That's what a leader does.
That's what a leader does. That's what we see. So here's the biting scene, and they take him away. But the other thing I do, he's got to fulfill his role as the assassin. But if they have to manage him, it's easier to manage him on the streets than in the custody of the FBI or somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Who may not go along, because the FBI clearly is investigating. You don't really know that towards the end of the movie,
right?
They got some suspicions. They're watching this. They, obviously they're doing police work. All these stories can't be the same from this platoon. This just doesn't make sense. So here's the crazy look. Look at it.
Yeah, he got it in his teeth. That little.
He just looks nuts, right? He looks nuts. And of course, the aides around Shaw are also in on it, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
the big
that's
guy,
right.
The big white guy.
Yeah,
he's
big
dirty.
White guy.
He's dirty right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your TV ESP tells you he's dirty, right? Just because the way he looks, the furtive looks, and then he ends up planting the gun that Denzel
Yeah, you
uses.
think he's trying to be security-wise, but no, he's dirty.
He's dirty. Well, let's roll the next scene and label this. What is it? So he's got his device now. And he goes to his German friend, which is, and I think his German friend said, "Hey, you saved me from something that he was involved in, and so I'll help you." But his German friend also says, you probably were followed. They're probably following you. Well, he recognizes the hazard, and eventually when Denzel goes back to find him again, he's cleared out. Either he's cleared out or they cleared him out, right? But he's gone. So he gives them the information he wants. He evaluates it. He says this is far more advanced than I'm used to.
Chief,
more advanced than anybody knows about.
Oh, did you not get that one? What is it?
No.
Ah.
What is it not? That we have is implant that is comes in fact before the one we did, in which he's talking to his German friend about the possibility, the theoretically implant.
Right. Okay. Well, I must have not put that scene down when I was doing my homework for the show. But basically, he takes the device to his German friend. His friend evaluates, and he says, "Yeah, I'm familiar with the technology, although this is much more advanced." And then he clues him in on who's likely the people that were doing it. This is where he learns about, I think, the doctor at this point, and he starts putting it together, right? And then, of course, and he says it here. Maybe they know you're here. So this doctor, obviously working for government, knows that Denzel, if they've gone to this far, and he had one in Denzel and they had one in Shaw, then they are following Denzel, or they're trying to keep track of him, and they likely followed him to his shop. So I still owe you one. So he gave him his information, and he beat feet and got out of there. But he explained that it's a homing device and a tracking device. That part was kind of unrealistic. I don't think your average major in the military would have those kinds of connections, right? But hey, they got to make the movie work, right? So so you got the convenience of personal relationships to figure these things out, right? So what do you think of our German guys? The scene, of course, he's got to be German, right?
Well, yeah, and he thanked Denzel for getting him out of another country where he was going to be.
That's right. Yeah.
Executed. So he was doing undercover work for the government probably at the time, and Denzel went in there and got him out, and he thanked him for that. And, yeah, the guy knows, but the look on his face is like, ooh, this we shouldn't have this technology. It's not ready yet.
Right.
Guess what? It is.
It is. Yeah, by the South African doctor, or I'm sorry, by Manchurian Corporation. That's who actually did it. The doctor just kind of implants it. Well, let's roll with the scene. Shoot Private Ingram, because this is probably the nightmare that Denzel it keeps thinking
I
about.
haven't that one either.
What? How did we miss that one? What's the next scene you got, Martine?
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
And it's not a pun.
You don't have John Voight? Wow.
Nope.
I'll have to audit him. Okay, well, let me explain the scene. I'm sure you guys saw it. So this is it. They go back to, and they have I read they actually filmed this brainwashing scene in New Jersey, but it's supposed to theoretically be somewhere around Saudi Arabia, and it's on this island with some of these ruins, right? And and in it they have all, you see all of the soldiers are lined up in chairs, strapped down. They got stuff on their brains or on their heads, electrodes and different stuff. They clearly have been beaten up a little bit, right? So they've been roughed up. And you see one of the scenes where Denzel tries to escape, but he passes out. And later he says, I'm trying to get out to the water. If I can get out to the water, I think I can save my guys. So he's still,
That's right.
During this process, he still understands what's going on, but they're using the mind control techniques on him. And he's ordered to kill Private Ingram, which, John, you said that was the son or the brother of...
that's Pablo Schreiber. Now he's really buff, but he's thin in this movie. It's one of his first things he did. Liev is his older brother, and he played that position. I didn't recognize him at first, and then I looked it up, and it was Pablo, and he's the one that's standing up, and Denzel shoots him right square in the forehead. He's now starred in a whole bunch of different stuff, like that I forgot the name of the TV show on Paramount. It was a takeoff on a Halo.
Halo, yeah.
He did that, but he's done other stuff. He's played gangsters. He was I think he played Trig in Benghazi, the 13 Hours, that movie. Did a great job there. But he's about 6'2", 6'3", and he's totally buff now. But yeah, hell of an actor. But that runs in the family. Both good actors.
He wasn't in Ray Donovan. He wasn't in his series there.
I don't know. I've only watched Ray Donovan for a few years. I haven't watched it recently or the last several years. But he may have had a piece in it. I don't know. But he played in another movie where he was a bank robber with 50 Cent. And they were all former military, and they set up taking down armored cars, and they get caught, and they have a big shootout using that. Great actor.
Well, it's John Voight was in Ray Donovan. He plays the dad. He plays the dad of Ray, right? They're all kind of a boxing family too, right?
He
so
plays a real douche in that one, but he's a hell of an actor. John Voight's a hell of an actor.
He is, man. Love him.
Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy when he first came out.
Yeah, the one I remember was it was Train. Remember the one where they're on the runaway train, and there are two convicts on the runaway train? God, he plays a really good bad guy in that one.
Yeah, he does.
Kind of an anti-hero in that one, but he is a good actor.
He's played pimps, he's played dirtbags, he's played everything. Yeah, I like John Voight. He's great. And he's conservative.
He's conservative, but he still gets roles because he's a good actor, right? So.
Yep.
But he always doesn't have to be the lead too. I mean, he's been the leading man in a lot of stuff, but he also, I guess, as you get older though, you become more of a character actor, right? You stay busy, but and you get good roles. And my understanding, I don't know, Cliff, what do you think? Sometimes the character actor role is much more interesting to play.
Yeah, definitely. I always, man, the character actors, yeah, man, John Voight just, man, I'm just thinking of him and Ray Donovan. That was such a great series. All those guys. Man, and John, you must have liked that show because that was from your area, right, over there. Were they in Boston? Is that where they were?
Yeah, it was Boston originally.
Yeah.
Then he moves out to California.
That's right. Yeah. But God, that was a great series. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Oh,
the character actors are, and some of those guys have the longest careers. Yeah, great writing, a lot of those character actors had the longest careers, right? I mean, they can have the longevity because you always need good character actors, and so you have a much wider range of roles available to you.
Yeah, I remember one of the character actors that I liked is John Mitchum, which is Robert Mitchum's brother. He played in a lot of Clint Eastwood stuff, and he played DiGiorgio in I think the original two Dirty Harrys. He played, that was him. He also played in Outlaw Josie Wales with him. Just so in this place, and John Voight, well, to some degree, he's playing a character actor in Ray Donovan. I mean, the dirtbag dad, right? He's not the main lead, but he's got some good screen time. And here he's kind of playing a character actor. He's playing the senator, right?
Yeah.
The opposition senator, the person who's in the way of Meryl Streep, right? But let's. So I don't have the next scene, I guess. So we're gonna talk about it. But anyway, so Denzel has to shoot Private Ingram, and we talked about torture and doing things that are really bad are one way to control people. That's the torture and the mind control. And we see this with cults. When we talk about cults, they do brainwashing. That's what you had kind of with. Who was that crazy nut over in Waco, Texas? It was Koresh, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, he used the Bible, and they gradually chip away at those values that you have and tell you that those values are not right. And that they in this, and the same with Jim Jones down in Guyana, right?
Yeah.
Gradually you give away those things of you to this cult. You have to, and part of it is some of these guys, like what's that nut that Jeffries, I think he had it's kind of a Mormon offshoot. You have to give all your money to them, and then and they select who you marry. There's and all cults. This other stuff. Yeah, all the, so you see this cult stuff do this, and they destroy your values and your resolve to resist what you know is wrong, and they completely change your world to make you think that what is typically wrong is okay. But in this case, it's the trauma that helps with the brainwashing, and that's what I saw when they killed Private Ingram, because if you notice, the two main people that they had to really control, Shaw and Marker, were the ones who killed the troopers, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's just like, I just looked it up. Now I forgot it. The Matt Damon movies.
Born Identity.
Born Identity. Yeah.
Love them.
They show him getting brainwashed.
Yeah.
By that one doctor, and he had to shoot a guy that had a bag over his head. He couldn't identify him and shot him 3 times in the chest. So that's part of the brainwashing.
Yeah. Will you do it? I remember that scene. What will you do for your country? Will you kill this guy? Right?
Yeah.
Will you do this? And that's what they do. And I think, if I remember correctly, there was some trauma with his dad getting killed, Matt Damon's dad, or something like that, and that drove him to willingness to go into, oh God, what was the name of their program that he was in? Give yourself into the program. Yep. Yeah, Blackstone or Black Star or Black Tri, whatever, something or other. That was the name of that. Blackstone, was it? Yeah. What was kind of a play on who were the Blackbriar. But who's the private military operation that operated in Iraq? It was Black something or other. Blackwater. That's it.
Yeah.
Blackwater. Yeah, Blackwater.
And it was the son of the people. What's that multi-level marketing thing where they sell? It's not Tupperware. It's
Amway.
That's
not Amway.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, oh, there you go, Treadstone. That was then came Treadstone. That's right. Thank you, Martine, for all of us old guys were struggling. So thank you so much.
Threadstone, and this one is you got big corporations now, Blackstone and BlackRock.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot of the same stuff.
Yeah,
the
and they're touching on
controlling.
that. But even in the Bourne series, there is medicine they have to take to keep them.
Yep.
As the story develops, they have to take medicine to maintain their skill sets, and you know, so so there is some kind of a chemical control method for those guys.
Yep.
So so they're implanting memory. So the next one is John Voight, which I guess I don't have the scene, but I did want to talk a little bit about John Voight. We did. It's just that he plays the antagonist here. He's the one who's going to resist Meryl Streep's efforts, and he's the one he doesn't believe in Shaw being the vice president. He's pushing against that. I believe he was supposed to be the vice president, and it ended up being Shaw, right? So she managed to outmaneuver him and threaten the Democrats, very much like what we had. You know what I mean? So much like what's going on today, behind the scenes, threatening, I will do this if you don't make this happen. He's a Medal of Honor winner. He's this, he's that. I will sabotage you guys if you don't make him your vice presidential candidate, right?
Right.
And that's what I liked about this movie. I can't imagine who went to Joe and says, all right, we're going to implement the 25th Amendment if you don't step down, right? I mean, that's what's out there that they said happened. Same kind of backdoor deal. We saw it in last week's show, the Ides of March. If you don't do this, I'm gonna tell about. If you don't do this, I'm gonna tell about the affair and knock you out. You got to make this guy your vice president. So we see this horse trading where they have dirt on somebody, and of course John Voight is not happy with this, but there's nothing he can do about it. It's really the presidential candidate, to pick who his vice president is going to be.
Yep.
And of course, John Voight, he has some suspicion of Shaw. Either this effort of Shaw to rekindle some romance with his daughter is dead. She doesn't have anything to do with it either, too. You see a little of that play out in this movie as well. And that was similar to the 62 movie, right? So there was a love interest, and eventually, in this case, Shaw kills that protagonist, and he ends up killing the daughter that he had some love interest with, and that part is consistent with the first movie, right, John?
Yep. Yeah. The what's funny is, supposedly when I've read up stuff on brainwashing and like hypnotics, when they hypnotize you, supposedly you can't do anything that's going to be counterintuitive to your personality, like killing somebody. But in these movies, they do. So, I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not a psychologist, but I've read that supposedly you can't do that stuff under hypnosis or anything else. But a lot of these movies kind of push it. So I'm thinking it could be real, at least in the near future.
Okay, well, so let me recap. So if it's not likely something that you would do or could possibly do, you can't be suggested to do it.
Right.
Right. But you could argue in this case, he's been under mommy's control for so long, right?
And the drugs and the thing in his head, there's not much he can resist until the very end.
Because he says way earlier in the movie, he says, the only resistance I really did to mom is when she made me break up with Jocelyn, because he implies that it was a mom who broke up. That's not the right match kind of thing.
Yep.
That his only act of rebellion was to go into the military. That's what he says early in the movie. Yep. So he's inclined to do what mommy wants, right? And which means when somebody has that much control over you, you have less boundaries that you won't cross, right? You're going to cross the boundaries that they expect of you to cross, right? And if you're raised by this controlling, manipulative monster, because we kind of see it all the time, right? I mean, there's some cults where they're family based, and the families will go do the dirty work for the cult, right?
Right.
But if you think about it, they've been raised their whole life to believe, that's Jeffries. I can't remember his first now. That he's God, or he's the prophet of God, and then the prophet of God tells you to go do something, and you do it. I mean, how about the kids that kind of grew up with Koresh? Maybe they were youngsters, and then he's been identified as God. Well, you got to do what God wants. That's the right thing to do, because a lot of us, the socialization we get, the values that we get, are driven by faith and family, And if it's a healthy situation, we learn those boundaries early. We learn those values early. But if you're in a cult, or if you're in a situation where there's undue control, like I remember I was reading this mom, she had her kids torture one of the other kids in the family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but she spent years denigrating one of the daughters as being, somebody that we can all target. And then when she pushed the other adult or the other teen kids to in fact target her, they did, and they killed her. So it's like this mommy control, or this control that you might have in a family where these things, where boundaries are not established, values are not established, social norms are not established. It makes it easier for them to do. So you can see that in this movie, there's a strong likelihood.
In those cults too, they use sex a lot.
Yeah.
Torture, sex, you name it. Got to have sex with the high mucky muck there, and he'll be doing all the kids and everything, and the adults don't do anything. They think, oh, this is wonderful. They're all brainwashed. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, and it's implied that she's used sex, right? And in one of the later scenes, it's implied that Meryl Streep has some kind of unhealthy attraction to her son there. So Cliff, what do you think of that? So if you don't send these I mean, we've dealt with kids who have not gotten good structure and good socialization, good guidance, good values, and they act out, right? That's not unusual. And then when you're in one of these controlling things where they don't get that, and somebody is their whole world, right? And pushes a certain ideology exploits them, that can happen to young kids. Even as they get to adults, they'll do what their parents want, right?
Yeah, we see that like in the gang world where and as Ben Carson says, it's kind of orchestrated to get the man out of the house. And financially, it's kind of necessary to get the finances into the house. You're punished for having a two-family or a two-parent home, and then these young kids are they have a father figure through the gang culture, and so it kind of feeds on itself. But so we see that. Yeah, and then you're gonna get this also with I'm reading about this in a book called Unveiled: Why the West Empowers Islam by Yasmin Mohammed, who was brought up where, she was originally brought up in Canada, and then her mom gets with a Islamist guy and takes her to Egypt, and all of a sudden, he breaks all her records, and they're not allowed to ride bikes anymore, and just to torture, he would bind her feet and spank her feet, and man, it's just, we're getting a lot of those, like you said, cultural traditions are going to be broken by the mass migration of this ideology, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I agree.
One of the things when I was working on anti-recidivism programs, one of the things they say, if you really want to break the criminogenic needs or criminogenic factors, you have to, once a young person decides to go in the right direction, and you deal with their impulsiveness, their sense of its impulsiveness, and just a lot of their own sense of entitlement and their criminal thinking. You have to get them in an environment. I mean, you can't send them back to an environment like a family that might also think that way. So, like if we're thinking about multi-generational families of gangsters, right? If they've set the status that, well, there's a certain code you live by as a gangster, you never let anybody disrespect you. You go out and shoot them, right? And it's okay to take advantage of people who are weaker than you. And we're the gang. We control this neighborhood. No, don't let anybody disrespect you. The one that I think about in a classic gang neighborhood, a family moves in, they throw a party, and the gangsters show up expecting to be fed and drink, right? And then if you push back, they come back and take it out on you. I mean, I remember a story in Carson. That's what happened. They're having I think it was a baby shower or something like, and these idiots showed up and expected it, and the dad said, no, this is not your party. This is a family party. And they came back with bats. He came out with a 45. Gangsters lost, but they came out and shot up his house and burned down his house. So, the fact that they would think that that's okay means they were raised in that environment, that those things were okay, and they don't have boundaries. And I just think that some of this is the power that Meryl Streep is seeking. It's okay to cross the boundaries. That's where I kind of, with Hillary and others, it's okay to cross these boundaries because I'm seeking power. It's
Yes.
okay to bounce Joe out because we're seeking power. Right now
And
it's
she believes she deserves it. When she mentioned that her husband who had died,
yeah.
he could have been president, but he gave it all up. And that to me intimated that she had something to do with his demise. And then she's pushing her son, but she was the power broker and she wants this ultimate power. So the ends justify the means.
Yeah. Well, let's roll that scene. It's not your fault, right? And this is, I think, the scene where it's really weird. It's one of the things. It's with where we start to see this. So here the mom actually is somebody who understands the trigger, and the trigger, I think, is to call him by his full name.
That's right. Yeah, with the middle name. Yeah.
Raymond Prentice Shaw the third,
Yeah.
or something like that. Raymond Prentice, and that's the trigger. So and then she suggests to him, you got to go kill John Voight's character. That's a Senator. Oh my God, Senator Jordan. Oh my God, Senator Thomas Jordan. You got to go kill him. And so she sends him out there to be an assassin and kill that, because she sees him as a threat. He realizes, Voight realizes something's going on. He doesn't quite understand it because what's his name? Marco had come to talk to him. He doesn't quite understand it, but he's gonna talk about it, or he's gonna release it, and that would. So he's telling him, hey, drop out, have your son drop out, and we'll figure this out later. But he has to drop out, and so she weaponizes Prentice. It's Senator. Let's see what his full name is here, because it's her son, right? Let's see. But she's got, here we go. We got Congressman Raymond Prentice Shaw. So that's the trigger, Raymond Prentice Shaw, and that's the trigger, that because I guess they don't use his middle name very much, and that triggers him. What was it in? Was it like the Queen of Hearts in the original Manchurian Candidate? Yeah,
Don't remember.
I think it was. I think it was something.
Yes, Queen of Hearts.
Queen of Hearts. It was something that
they made him play solitaire, and the moment he sees a Queen of Hearts is the moment
That's right.
Is the cue for taking the instruction.
Right, and both of those, I think, are just too common. Somebody's going to eventually call you your real name, right? And somebody's going to eventually play cards with you, and you're going to
no.
So,
but
go ahead.
In this one, there is a sequence in which they say first Sergeant Shaw, then Sergeant
Raymond.
On every iteration, the chain of names is added one more, and it's one specific and in one specific order. And when he reached the third calling is when he goes into android mode.
Goes into android mode. That's a good way to put it. The other thing is when they were killing John Voight here and his head is underwater. I thought that was a good scene. I don't know what you guys, where you see him underwater there. I go, how did they do that? And then of course his daughter comes out and he ends up killing her as well. But you remember, as the kayak's tipped over and John Voight's head is upside down in the water, I go, wow, that's an interesting scene. How did they do that? And but he ends up killing both of them, and he doesn't. This is the thing. He'll do something, doesn't remember, and the people from Manchurian Corporation, they're mad at her. Why did you do this? Why did you turn this valuable piece of property they have, her son? Okay, this is the crazy part, that she would let this happen to her son. Why did you weaponize him and to become an assassin? He's more valuable than that. We could have dealt with it some other way. But she said, and she says a comment. What she said? Where are all the men anymore? When the guys are kind of hand wringing over, oh my God, this is bad. Where are all the men anymore? That's what she says. So she's this masculine, take charge woman, and that includes willing to kill somebody to get her son in the office of the president, because ultimately it's to kill the president or the elected president, so her son can become the president.
She was more Clinton than Clinton was.
yeah, and it's funny because when these are all Democrats making or not, Denzel's not, Meryl Streep is. So if that's who she characterized her character as. But you just look at what's going on. How far are they willing to go to get power, right? And that's why I liked this movie, because when we did the Ides of March, it was one of the audience members that says you got to do the Manchurian Candidate. And when I watched the movie, I go, okay, I get it. I mean, I remember the old one, and that was more about mind control and communists and all that other stuff. But this one, with corporations and the effort to circumvent the electoral process or whatever, to place your candidate in the horse trading, the backdoors deals, and then what went on with Biden to get him to step down so that Kamala can run. Just it all. It made sense why they said we needed to do it, right?
Yep.
But what do you think of that? Where are all the men anymore? So a lot of our, I think a lot of our women feel like they need to be tough like our male politicians, and they do have to at some times. But she bemoans, first of all, toxic masculinity is all bad these days. But in this movie, she bemoans, where are those masculine men that used to exist, his father, right? That's what I got out of it. It was just the hypocrisy. Of course, this was a while ago, this movie. It was 20 years ago. But nowadays, that masculine man is defanged and marginalized, right, John?
Oh, yeah,
like yourself.
absolutely. The whole thing's a joke. It's like that Algerian boxer. It came out yesterday that she does have XY chromosomes, not XX, is a dude, but was raised as a woman. Total different than what they said during the Olympics. It came out. It's been proven. So they want to demasculate men, and they want men to take over all these things from women. I don't get it. It's so confusing in the ways that it's going. And then now all you have nowadays is soy boys that drink soy and have no testosterone and wear man buns,
Well, that's so it's just funny that it's Meryl Streep saying it, that they're saying, where are all the good masculine men? Because that's funny, they emasculate men and then they say, where are all the good men?
Exactly. That's if the man abides by what they want. If they don't, then they're not masculine. They're not real men.
Ultimately, that's what they don't want. That's what I'm saying. If the guy just goes along as a doormat, then they don't really want that. I guess that's my perception. But I just thought it was. What do you think of the comment from her? I thought it was funny. Where are all the good men anymore? Because she's got these three men wringing their hands over her use of Raymond. Why can't they be
tough as her, and she's
why can't they be decisive? Why can't they take risks? Why can't they do that? And they're thinking, oh my God, I just made probably a multi-million-dollar investment in this guy, and I might lose it. And she's saying, where are these risk takers? Where are the masculine men? What do you think, Cliff?
We know exactly where they are. They're winning gold medals. They're winning golf tournaments. They're winning swim meets. They're winning. They're winning. They're taking state and county records. These men are really winning in women's sports. That's what they're doing. We know where they're at.
I was, the one on the gal from Algeria. I mean, I guess she's intersex, so she's got a little bit of both, right? And so she was raised as a girl. So it's a little different story when you read the whole story than somebody who grew up as a man then switched. But there's an interesting story. It was a weightlifting competition. I can't remember whether it was Britain or where it was. And a man transitioned to a woman and then competed in weightlifting, right? And was killing all the records and was mocking the female athletes. And they were being trained by a particular coach. And that coach says, okay, dude, I'm feeling like a woman today. So he competes and outlifts, the transgender woman by like 100 pounds, on the bench, just destroys the record. And then the other person complains, well, this isn't fair. I mean, you can't have it both ways here. You can't have it both ways, And the coach is
they want it both ways.
The coach is just doing with a big smile on his face, saying the absurdity.
Yeah, I remember when he did that. That was great. That was epic.
Yeah. That was, it's just the thing about Title IX. Title IX came about in the 70s, and it was a way to expand opportunities for women. Now, it had a detrimental impact on
It was
some male.
needed.
It was needed, and as it went on, you see how good it's been for girls and women in terms of expanding their opportunities in college and sports, and it was the right thing to do, and
Yep.
maybe you didn't feel that way in 75, but it certainly felt that way now. And then, to have gender be thrown in there, so now it really isn't about biology; it's about how you feel that day. Is problematic for me, because I think
It's an insult to women.
Well, we worked so hard to set up this situation so that women are treated fairly. And then you look at like Riley Gaines when she swam. So she swam for, I think it was the freestyle, whatever she swam against, that Leah Thomas. But she had trained her whole life for that, and she actually tied him. I mean, I was listening to her story. She actually tied him at the NCCA final, and they said, "Well, we're going to give it to him. We're going to give it to him," even though they tied.
Yeah, that's
even
right.
Though they tied,
yeah.
And just a few months before, he was swimming with the men. Now he's swimming with the women, and they gave it to him to be politically correct.
Yeah.
Which is shocking.
Disgusting.
It's like, why would you do that? And so, I think anybody that's got a little girl out there that wants to be in sports, think about that, particularly. And then you have sports where there's contact, and there's a risk of girls who just aren't as strong getting injured and hurt too. So I just think that's kind of crazy. But I thought this comment was funny. It's almost a joke. Where are all the men anymore, right? So let's roll the weird mom. I think if Denzel Washington biting the thing was probably the best scene, this scene between Meryl Streep and her son here is
cringiest.
It's the cringiest, yes. Where he's got his shirt, eventually got his shirt off, and she's touching his body, and she's looking at him,
rubbing his chest,
and it's just
gives him a big kiss on the lips.
That was and then it cuts out. So here's a guy. He's the guy that plants the rifle for Marco, right, for Denzel's character, and sets it up there. And here's where the FBI agents are figuring out something's going on. So they end up saving the day here, and Marco ends up surviving, because the goal was the agent would go run up there and kill him, and he'd be the hero and write books and make money. But the FBI interrupts that after he does do the assessment. But this whole scene with the mom, that was just the weirdest thing, and it implies an incestuous relationship between the mom and the son, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oedipus Rex complex.
So, just repeat that. Can you explain that Greek
it's
story?
Oedipus Rex complex. Back in the Greek and Roman times, there was a warrior whose father was dead. He had to take over as king, but he was just the prince. And his mother was like Meryl Streep, very assertive, and set him up and pushed him to be the new king.
Wait.
But he was in love. What?
Go ahead.
That's not exactly the way in which that happened. Oedipus, he got separated from his family, and he grew not knowing who he was. Then the city was being suffering from the curse of the how is this creature called? The Sphinx. In at this point, Oedipus' father was already dead. Oedipus fought the Sphinx and beat it, and the reward was he was going to be made the king of the kingdom.
And of course, love.
Yes, he marries his mother without any of them knowing what they were related. When eventually they knew it, she committed suicide, and he blinded himself and banished himself. So, it was messed up, but they did not know what they were doing, unlike this one.
Shaw doesn't. He's not attracted to his mom. He's been led around by the nose for years and dominated. Look at her face, and look at her looking up at his chest and him. She puts her hand on his chest. She's the one that is, she probably offed her husband because he wasn't man enough, and now she's made him man enough, and she's attracted to him physically.
And he says he's never had a romantic relationship, and this is the part
that's most probably his mom wants to do him. Disgusting.
Yeah, most probably he doesn't remember anything that she does to him afterwards.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Disgusting.
I think Freud talks about the Oedipus complex, where it's a little more it's a little more laid out as an attraction, and it is a little more overt an attraction, weird attraction, this whole sexuality stuff. But I just this was to me very cringy. As who said that? I think it might have been John. You might have said that.
Yep.
But it shows the ultimate controlling mother who's living through her son and yeah, it's just, and then even his kind of smile. Okay, I'm tolerating. Well, you don't know. He's kind of in this whole. He's just controlled by his mom. What do you think about this scene, Cliff? Here's the kiss too.
God, I mean, cringy just is. Yeah, it's just uncomfortable to watch that. Yeah, I didn't like that, but I guess it goes to part of the story of mind control and. I don't know, child abuse, I guess. I don't know what kind of plays into that.
Definitely. Well, it's obviously this kind of emotional abuse has been going on, whether it was sexual when he was a kid, but for a long time. And, Martine, go ahead and roll right into Kill Me. And here's the thing. I believe, because after the scene, he ends up at the convention and they're accepting the victory of the presidential candidate, accepting the victory, and obviously going to the win. They won, right?
Yeah.
And now they're just celebrating, and Marco's going to be up there, and his job is to kill the presidential candidate so that Shaw ends up becoming the president, right? And he's looking up to where the assassins happen, and she's looking up too. They both know what's going to happen, or they both think they know what's going to happen. And it's funny when he looks up there. It's almost like a signal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a signal.
It's almost like a signal to Marco. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I think happened?
Take me out. It's okay.
I think they took something out of the movie because it was already too long, and that may have been the part where he and Denzel Washington got together and devised this plan, because he gave him a look like he knew he was up there, he knew what he was going to do, and he was waiting for him to kill him.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he knew, he had finally realized, hey, this is fucked up. My mom's nuts. I killed a guy. I killed one of my men. We need to make this right.
You don't see it in there, but there's it's like a smile on his face too.
Yeah.
When Marco goes down,
he's
right?
Got a little smirk.
He's got
kind of like, hey, it's okay.
That's the only real control he's had in his life, or his last act of rebellion.
That's
right. His first act of rebellion was going in the military after his mom made him break up with his girlfriend, or who he thought was his girlfriend. His second act of rebellion was looking at Marco and saying, "Do it, dude. Do it.
That's right.
Wait till I get her in position and then do it."
Yep.
Because he knew he knew the bullet would go through both of them and kill them both. And
that's a high-powered 300 mag round at that distance. Oh, splat!
It's gonna go right through both of them. But he had a little smile on his face. What do you think, Cliff? Good ending. A little shocking ending, but good ending.
Yeah, good ending. And I thought it was a good ending because it kind of puts a bow on it to some extent. Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, I thought that was good. But like John said, something might have been left out. They were kind of indicating that it was right. They indicated in one shot, right, that he was kind of focused on that star on the ground, and then maybe he was putting her in that position. Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
It's different from the original movie, where the original movie, Lawrence Harvey was being pushed by Angela Lansbury, his aunt, and her husband, and they were the commies pushing him to be president. And he becomes a shooter, and instead of taking out the other politician, he turns and he shoots his aunt and his uncle right there on the stand.
That's right.
And then he takes his own life. But a little bit different. It's a different made movie, but both of them good.
Yeah, and Marco's supposed to kill himself here, but I think the FBI agent actually ends up saving him here. So
Well, you look what they did. This is what's really intriguing. is they used AI or whatever to change him in uniform walking in to a German terrorist, white
that's
guy,
right.
and now he's just scot-free. That was in 2004.
Yeah.
Imagine what they can do now.
Oh,
what
yeah.
they're capable of doing now. Yeah.
Yep.
What they're capable. Yeah. Well, and just the mere fact that technology is available now, they suggest stuff that is real. Hunter's laptop is not real, and now there's so many ways now to manipulate stories and suggest that evidence isn't real, and then create fake evidence. But yeah, it implies that the conspiracy continues because the industrial Manchurian corporation needs to survive, right? Some portions of it, they'll chop off some of the people that are involved in this, but ultimately they will survive and they'll still have government contracts, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was just freaky, the ending when they did all that. See, right there, they just changed it to the white terrorist that was supposedly killed before.
Yes.
Yep.
By the way, just to let you know, you saw Jose Ferrer playing one of the generals.
Yeah.
You missed the other one when after he bit him and got that diode out of his back, he was told by the other colonel or general that, this could be bad for you. That's Ted Levine. Ted Levine played Buffalo Bob in Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right,
yeah, I remember now. Yeah, that talk about
he's
weird.
a hell of an actor.
Yeah. All right, we are at the end of our show, guys. Thank you for going over another political crime thriller with me as we run up to the election, looking at the parallels of today with what's in the movie. And thank you for the audience that's dropped in to say hello. Guys, stick around for a quick debrief. And Martine, you can take it away.